Hello Internet, my name is ZemosHD. Welcome to the first episode of PragerU versus the Truth. Today we're going to be talking about, what else? The Enlightenment. Yeah, that's right. PragerU decided to lie about the Enlightenment. How did they even accomplish this? Okay, let's not get bogged down in the weeds. Let's see what mainstream academia and dictionaries define the Enlightenment as. Alright, to summarize those definitions, basically the Enlightenment took place between the 17th and the 18th century, in which we valued reason more than we did tradition and religious authority. So, let's see how PragerU decides to define it.
Suddenly overthrew religious dogma and tradition and replaced it with human reason. Harvard professor Steven Pinker puts it this way: progress is a gift of the ideals of the Enlightenment. There's just one problem with this claim. It isn't really true. Consider the U.S. Constitution, which is frequently said to be a product of Enlightenment thought. But you only need to read about English common law, which Alexander Hamilton and James Madison certainly did, to see that this isn't so. Already in the 15th century, the English jurist John Fortescue elaborated the theory of checks and balances, due process, and the role of private property in securing individual freedom and economic prosperity. Similarly, the U.S. Bill of Rights has its sources in English common law of the 1600s. Or consider modern science and medicine. Long before the Enlightenment, tradition-bound English kings sponsored path-breaking scientific institutions, such as the Royal College of Physicians, founded in 1518, and the Royal Society of London, founded in 1660.
Just remember, the king didn't do this out of the kindness of his heart. No. He had to be convinced to do it. But hey, just ignore that part.
The truth is that statesmen and philosophers, especially in England and the Netherlands, articulated the principles of free government centuries before America was founded. So why give the Enlightenment all the credit?
Well, it's because the Roman Catholic Church ruled Western Europe for literally centuries. Why is he ignoring all this history is the real question.
Apparently, because it doesn't look good to admit that the best and most important parts of modernity were given to us by individuals who nearly all held conservative religious and political beliefs.
Conservative as in what? As in they didn't like egalitarianism? As in they hated immigrants? What do you mean by conservative?
The claim that all good things come from the Enlightenment is most closely associated with the late 18th century German philosopher Immanuel Kant. For Kant, reason is universal, infallible, and independent of experience. His extraordinarily dogmatic philosophy insisted that there can be only one correct answer to every question in science, morality, and politics, and that to reach the one correct answer, mankind had to free itself from the chains of the past.
So one, technically there really kind of is only one answer as far as science goes for simple topics. And two, he does know that by arguing against Kant, he's literally arguing against principles that he would agree with, right?
That is from history, tradition, and experience.
I guess this guy just kind of forgot that the Enlightenment thinkers wrote books and crafted their philosophies off of the backs of the experiences of other philosophers, right? Again, the lies keep going on and on, but let's continue, I guess.
When cut loose from the constraints imposed by history, tradition, and experience, produces a lot of crazy notions. The abstract Enlightenment philosophy of Jean-Jacques Rousseau is a good example. It quickly pulled down the French state, leading to the French Revolution, the Reign of Terror, and the Napoleonic Wars. Millions died.
Something really funny is that PragerU, and maybe it's just my crazy left-wing brain or something, but hasn't PragerU praised Napoleon in the past for his achievements?
Wellington decisively defeated Napoleon's forces. The battle could have gone either way. Wellington himself described it as the nearest run thing you ever saw in your life. In all, Napoleon won 46 of the 60 battles he fought, drawing 7 and losing 7. His record clearly marks him as one of the greatest military commanders of all time. Yet, while Napoleon is best remembered for his military exploits, it's his political reforms, both inside and outside of France, that had the most lasting effect. In France, he established the Code Napoleon, a distillation of 42 competing and often contradictory legal codes into a single body of French law.
As Napoleon's army sought to rebuild every government in Europe, in light of the one correct political theory he believed was permitted by Enlightenment philosophy. Today's cheerleaders for the Enlightenment tend to skip this part of the story.
Modernized the French educational system and created the Sorbonne, which became one of the great universities of Europe. He promoted a building boom in Paris, a city whose architecture continues to enchant us. The bridges he built across the Seine and the sewer system he constructed beneath the city still function today. To Europe, Napoleon brought the best fruits of the French Revolution, concepts of equality and meritocracy. He liberated the Jews from the ghettos to which they had been confined for centuries, leading to an explosion of artistic, scientific, and economic innovation from this long-oppressed minority. It's hard to assess Napoleon because he was responsible for all these good things, while also being responsible for much that was bad. But we can say this with certainty. To compare him to the murderous, oppressive dictators of the 20th century, like Hitler and Stalin, or their tin-pot versions like Saddam Hussein or Colonel Gaddafi, is a gross injustice.
Today's cheerleaders for the Enlightenment tend to skip this part of the story. They also pass over the fact that the father of communism, Karl Marx, saw himself as promoting universal reason as well. His new science of economics ended up killing tens of millions of people in the 20th century.
Seriously, we're gonna cite the Black Book of Communism that's been literally debunked time and time and time again? Okay.
So did the supposedly scientific race theories of the Nazis. The greatest catastrophes of modernity were engineered by individuals who claimed to be exercising reason.
Holy shit. Now this guy is just arguing against the idea of empiricism. Jesus Christ. I shouldn't have to explain this. But I am anyways. The basic concept of the burden of proof is that you need to provide evidence for your claims. The basic concept of empiricism is that you can't rely on your feelings, but you can rely on experience. Or in this case, evidence, really. That's what it means in this context specifically. Now, we could do the PragerU thing and debunk Nazism by saying, oh, well, they used evidence and reason to come to their conclusion, so, of course they're wrong. We really need to do tradition. However, that is what I would like to call, and this is scientifically speaking, dumb. What you should do is you should rely on experts who evaluate their claims and their studies and conclude that they are false, like I'm about to show you right now.
In contrast, most of the progress we've made comes from conservative traditions, openly skeptical of human reason.
I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe.
The Enlightenment's critics, including John Selden, David...
Oh my god, holy fucking shit. They got his name wrong. Oh no. Oh god, they actually got his name wrong. They actually misspelled his name. With a Google search, I figured out that was wrong. How? How do you misspell his name? I can't do it anymore. Oh no.
Hume, Adam Smith, and Edmund Burke emphasized the unreliability of abstract reasoning and urged us to stick close to custom, history, and experience in all things.
But yeah, no, like, all the memes and jokes aside, he's definitely, just glossing over the more fine details of these people. The only person I'll give him is Edmund Burke, who, yeah, definitely was a conservative. I mean, he supported the idea that the French Revolution was a bad meme, so,
Which brings us to the heart of what's wrong with today's idolization of the Enlightenment. Its leading figures were not skeptics, open to what history and experience might teach us. Their aim was to create their own system of supposedly infallible truths independent of experience. And in that pursuit, they were as rigid as the most dogmatic medievals. Anglo-Scottish conservatives had a very different goal. They defended national and religious tradition, even as they cultivated what they called a moderate skepticism, a combination that became known as common sense. I think a lot about common sense these days, as I see American and European elites clamoring for enlightenment now. They rush to embrace every fashionable new ism, socialism, feminism, environmentalism, and so on, declaring to be universal certainties and the only politically correct way of thinking. They display contempt towards those who won't embrace their dogmas, branding them unenlightened, illiberal, deplorable, and worse. But these new dogmas deserve to be greeted with some of that old Anglo-Scottish skepticism. Enlightenment over confidence in reason has led us badly astray too many times. I'm Yoram Chazoni, author of The Virtue of Nationalism for Prager University.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the first episode of PragerU versus Truth. Oh, I didn't expect to laugh so much. I'm so sorry. Yeah, all the sources will be down in the description below. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for watching.
What is white privilege anyway? Because you're born with white skin, you have all these advantages that I don't have?
Work, work.